The Walking Dead Rewrite, Season 8, Episode 9, Lines We Cross, the mid-season premiere. Now we open the episode with a flash forward. We see Rick, Daryl, Michonne, Morgan, Carol, Father Gabriel, and Sadiq, as well as a few other Alexandria fighters. As they are walking up to the border, we hear the same music as when they discovered the pikes. They lay down their weapons, and they wait, as we then see a group of the dead approaching them from the other side of the border. We then reveal it's Alpha and her whispers as she steps out and says, "There is one rule within our people, one law, stay where you are. Yet, Mr. Grimes, you disobeyed." And Rick says, "We crossed one time to save our people from freezing to death. You can understand that." And Alpha says, "Very well. What did I tell you about crossing my border?" And she smiles and says, "You have to be punished." As the Whispers pull out their guns and they point it towards our characters, as Rick looks scared, something is about to happen. Now back at Alexandria, this is a few days before. We see our characters at the Alexandria safe zone as they're all kind of living their normal lives, and then we see groups of the dead continuing to go up to the gates. As you see the hours go by, we would see our characters killing a whole bunch of the dead. Now, one of the things that I never really liked in the main Walking Dead show is how every 2 seconds we'd be cutting to a title card. Hour this, hour that. I really think that the show really did it horribly, and honestly, every 2 seconds you'd be waiting to see something, and nope, oh, we gotta say what hour it is. So honestly, I'm gonna make this simple. In this scene, you see our characters, they see the dead, they're killing them, we see a montage, we see the sunset, we see the sunrise, we see them killing them at night, and then we see them killing it the next day. I really don't think there's any need for all these unnecessary title cards. Literally, I think there was like at least about 20 of them. Honestly, I'm gonna make this easy. I'm gonna make this really, really fast and right to the point. We see a montage, it cuts to night, it cuts to day, they're killing the dead, they're getting tired, more keep coming. It's pretty simple. I think the Walking Dead TV show really complicated this scene, and it really took me out of the experience. So, in this scene, that is how we are going to handle it. Now, as we cut to a few days later and the dead are still coming, we see the dead finally stop, and we then see a new whisper. Now, this whisper is Gamma. As she shows up to the gates, we see Rick and we see Daryl that approach her, and Rick says, "Is there something you need?" And Gamma looks at Rick and says, "Go to the border, lay down your weapons, and wait." And Daryl speaks up and says, "Wait for what?" And Gamma says, "Her." And then she walks away. Now back at the Hilltop, you get to see Glenn. As he's waking up, he puts his hand on the pillow next to him, then realizing Maggie is not there anymore. And then he goes to check on Herschel. As he goes and walks into his room, we then see Herschel is not in his bed. As Glenn starts to freak out, he starts running around Hilltop yelling out Herschel's name. We don't know where Herschel is. As Glenn runs through Hilltop looking for Herschel, he comes upon the graves, as he then sees Herschel took a sleeping bag and is sleeping next to Maggie's grave at the Hilltop, which is a parallel to what Rick did after Andrea died in the Walking Dead comics, except in this case, it's a son grieving his dead mother. As Glenn runs up to him and says, "Why did you sneak out?" And he says, "It was a cold night. I didn't want to leave Mom out here alone." Glenn starts to break down as he hugs him, and we see the death of Maggie is really affecting them. We then see Carl and we see Enid, and they're waking up for the day, and Enid says, "I got a big day ahead of me." And Dwight and Sherry said they were going to bring some soldiers here later today. Rick wants some sort of army. He says he wants us all to meet him at Alexandria by the end of the week. He wants to raise an army. And Carl says, "Yeah, that sounds like my dad." And Carl says, "Well, hey, you have a good day." And Enid says, "I'll see you around 4. Carl says, "Sounds good." And Enid walks out of the trailer. Now back in Alexandria, we get to see everybody gathering around in the meeting room as you see Rick asking Lydia, do you think that this is your mother? And Lydia says, no, because if Alpha wanted you dead, she would send all of them in one pack, not just a few groups of the dead at the time. So Rick then says, okay. And as Rick starts to talk about going to the border and talking, some of the people are angry. Some of the people want justice. And we see that. As some of the people start yelling at Rick and the rest of the council, Rick then speaks up and says, you want to know how many of them are out there? And everybody pipes down, and Rick says, when Alpha took me there, she showed me the army she had. There's at least tens of thousands of them. So unless you have a plan to take them out, or unless you have a suggestion for me, I suggest you all sit back and let me make this decision as leader. We are not ready for war. We are not ready to fight. Dwight and the others are not here. We don't have our army. We need to be properly trained, and we're not ready to face them head on yet. So until we are, we're going to the border. Right now, all she wants to do is talk. And right now, we're going to listen so we don't end up with another fucking head on that pike. And the crowd really calms down. And Rick says, we're tired. And it's gonna get worse before it gets better. But we're not gonna get through any of this shit if we do not act as one. We then cut to Negan as he's doing some yard work and he's throwing out the dead bodies. As we see Gabriel talks to him and says, there's more over there when you're done with this pile. And Negan replies, you know, suddenly picking red fruit sounds like a goddamn vacation to me now. And Gabriel says, get it done. And Negan smiles at him and says in a sarcastic manner, okay, I am on it, boss. As we then cut to Rick, Michonne, Daryl, Morgan, Carol, Gabriel, Sadiq, and some other Alexandria fighters on their way out to go meet Alpha at the border. It's now nighttime, as you see more of the dead coming up to the Alexandria walls. You've got Rosita and you got Eugene out there, killing the dead and defending Alexandria while the others are gone. And we see Rosita says, you want to go back, don't you? And he's like, no, I could go all night. And they keep killing either way. But now, it's time. We're back at the border. As we cut to Alpha saying, you have to be punished. As you see the guns click, and as you then see, Rick steps out in front and says, wait, we can work this out. We came here to talk. We didn't come here to fight. And Alpha says, I know, but rules are rules. And if you were a better leader, Mr. Grimes, they would have followed them. But what do we have now? Conflict. I didn't want any conflict, but you leave me no choice. I'm afraid you're gonna have to pay the price. And she walks over to Sadiq, who looks terrified, and she says, you were supposed to tell them, after what I did, never to cross my border again. But I now see you failed. And Sadiq says, no, I didn't. Please. And Alpha says, you're useless to me now. You are nothing, except for more blood on my knife. And she stabs Sadiq in the throat as Rick and the others have to sit there and watch it happen. Sadiq bleeds out and falls to the ground. As you see the anger on all of their faces, Rick looks pissed off. And then Alpha wipes her knife and puts it back in the sheath. She looks at Rick and she says, we will give you a new border. The creek in the valley, that is your new southern border. We're gonna mark your border to the north. And Carol speaks up in the process of all of this, even after Sadiq's death, and says, that's gonna cut off our hunting grounds. We don't have to sit here and listen to this. Carol, Michonne says. And Alpha walks over and says, to this, what? And Carol says, to this bullshit. And Daryl says, okay, no, this is over. We're done. And Alpha says, we're not until this one lowers her eyes to my feet. You should fear me. And Carol says, I don't. I look at you and I feel nothing at all. And Alpha smiles and says, is that right? You know, your husband screamed your name just before we took his head. And Carol pulls out a gun and tries to shoot Alpha. However, she misses. And then Rick walks up to Alpha and says, please, I apologize for my friend. We have not slept, and you know what she lost. And Alpha says, I forgive you, mother to mother. And as Carol looks angry, Alpha picks up the last pike and says, this is my land now. You better run. And Daryl says, come on, let's go. As Rick and the others have to flee before Alpha kills them too. After a commercial break, we see Rick and the others on their way back, as they all look devastated by what just happened. Michonne tries to talk to Carol and says, "Carol, I know you're dealing with a lot." Carol interrupts and says, "The bitch has to die." And then they keep walking, as we see them on their way back home. Back at the hilltop, we see Carl and we see everybody else are asleep, as it's the middle of the night. They then are woken up by a huge noise outside. As Carl quickly gets up, Glenn runs out. Everyone then runs out of the house, and they then see, just like in the original Walking Dead, a tree has fallen over the walls. Carl runs up to this and says, "What the hell happened?" As we see Jesus and the others are trying to help the poor people out, a lot of people look injured, and Jesus says, "I don't know what happened, but we gotta help these people. It's gonna take a lot of time to get them out." And we see Carl and everybody else are very much in a panic, and they don't know why this happened. Back at Alexandria, as we see Rick and the others make it back, we have a music montage as they're telling everybody that Sadiq is dead. And Rick then looks around and notices, now that he's come back, all of a sudden, the walkers are not coming towards the community anymore. And that's how Rick realizes it was the Whispers. And Rick looks at all the dead bodies around and all the dead zombie bodies that they've been tossing out over the past few days. And he looks at everybody and he says, "We have our answer. It was them." And Rick walks away as everyone looks devastated by what just happened to Sadiq. Back at the hilltop, we see Magna, Yumiko, Connie, Enid, and Carl, and they're all out there fighting the dead, as they're trying to stop them from getting in. But as they kill walker after walker, after a while, Carl is smart enough to realize, okay, if they stay out there, they're gonna die. They're getting weak. There's more of the dead coming. We need to go back inside. So as Carl tells them to go back in, Magna looks like she wants to stay out, but Yumiko tells her, "Magna, we stay out here, we die." And Magna then goes back in with the rest of them. But just as they enter the hilltop walls, they look back and the wall goes down. As the dead are starting to go in, and as the dead are starting to enter the hilltop, they all come together and try to kill every last one of them. But as they all look exhausted, and as they all look like they're ready to give up, all of a sudden, all of the dead are shot and killed and gunned down. And once Carl turns around to see who did it, we then see Dwight, Sherry, and the military from the sanctuary has come to their rescue, and they have killed every last one of the walkers that were coming. Dwight and the military run in, and Dwight says, "What the hell happened here?" And Jesus says, "We don't know. A tree went down over there, took down the wall, brought a bunch of the dead with it." And Dwight says, "You think it's the Whispers?" And Jesus says, "It crossed my mind." And Carl says, "Well, we're happy you're here," as Dwight kind of gives him a smile. We then are back in Alexandria. As everything is peaceful and as everybody is grieving over the death of Sadiq, we have Rick that is going out for a walk in the middle of the night, just trying to get his mind off of what just happened. He's definitely feeling the pressure of being a leader, and we can easily see that in this scene. But then, all of a sudden, we see three guys come up behind him. One is Gage, and they sneak up behind Rick, and all of a sudden, they start beating the crap out of Rick, and they start beating his face in as they attack him, just like in The Walking Dead issue 150 from the comics. But then, we see someone has hit two of the guys with a shovel. Rick doesn't know who it is yet. As Gage starts to run away, two of the guys got hit in the head with a shovel by Negan. And as one of them goes down, the other one tries to run away. But as Rick tackles him, Negan then says, "I got him." Rick tackles him to the ground. The guy starts to get the advantage, and then Rick then bites the guy's neck out. As Negan sees Rick do this, and he says, "Holy shit." And just like in the Walking Dead comics, Rick bites his throat out, and we then see Negan saved Rick's life, and Rick also defended himself. As everybody runs out of their houses, Michonne then helps Rick up, and they get Rick to an infirmary immediately. They then see what Negan did, and they lock him back up, even though we have just seen that Negan saved Rick's life. As we then see Rick in the infirmary getting patched up, he tells Michonne as she's sitting in there with him what happened exactly and how Negan saved his life. Michonne is surprised to hear this, and when Rick is better, he goes into Negan's cell and talks to him. Negan says that he wasn't gonna let the two guys beat him up, and Rick says, "It doesn't matter." And Rick says, "I know what you did, and I don't know how to look at you anymore. You've been locked up in here, biting your tongue for the last 8 years. Why would you save me? Why wouldn't you just let them kill me, you of all people?" And Negan says, "Because through all the bullshit we've been through, Rick, I actually respect what you've built here. I mean, Alexandria is a million times better than I even envisioned you could have made it. And I want to actually hang on to that. So that's why I did it. End of story." And Rick says, "Well, you're going to get a chance to tell your side." And Rick walks out. As all of his people are staring at him, Rick looks in bad shape and he says to everybody, "Well, tonight was probably one of the worst nights we've had since the walls were back up, since we took this place back after the Saviors. And now here I am again, scared, in fear that we're gonna lose our home again. I let my guard down tonight, and because of that, we lost someone else. I almost lost my life, but it's only because I want this place to stand. I want us to survive, and I want to make sure we don't have to lose anybody ever again. But tonight was clear, and it's clear to me now. We are going to go to war with the Whispers. We are going to lose people. And I have to accept that. Just like all of you have to accept it. I've done what I've done to keep this place standing, but frankly, I can't do it alone. If I don't have you people, I don't have the courage to continue this. It's times like this we have to stand together. We have to make sure that this place survives. Will you help me make sure that we will survive this great fight?" And everyone starts cheering for Rick as Rick starts to look confident. And everyone starts cheering for Rick as Negan sees this and he says, "That a boy." The next day, Gabriel is walking in Alexandria. He's about to go talk to Negan. As he slowly walks down the stairs and he's about to say something to him, he walks in and then we reveal overnight Negan has managed to escape. As he knocks on Rick's door, Michonne opens it. Gabriel is standing there in a panic, and as he says, he's gone. As we reveal, Negan has escaped. So that was The Walking Dead, Season 8, Episode 9, the mid-season premiere of 8B. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. We had a lot of stuff going on in this one. We had the border meeting, we had the death of Sadiq, we had our first casualty of the Whisper War. As things are getting more heated, we really focused on Rick's leadership and what it really takes to lead a group through a situation like this, and a lot of the conflict with the Pikes. We see a lot of people are still angry. Rick had a very close near-death experience, and as we continue the Negan redemption arc, he has saved Rick's life. Now, obviously, something in the Walking Dead comics that I really enjoyed is when Rick gets attacked by those young kids. However, I thought it really would be cool to add in that scene, just to almost add to that scene from the Walking Dead comics. Rick actually gets saved by Negan, just like Negan saved Lydia, except we still adapt the comics and we still have Negan save somebody. So it's a bit of a mix of the original show and the comics kind of blended into one, and that is what we did there as well. We also got to see the tree fall. We got to see these little nicks that the Whisperers are doing over time. We saw the herd, we saw the tree, we saw a little bit of what they were doing here to kind of plant the seeds of this war. And as we see our characters are really on edge now, and as Rick is just fed up with this and he is ready to go to war, we see our characters are fully ready, even Dwight and the military who are now coming. As Rick is about to form an army, just like in the Walking Dead comics, we see the Whisper War is about here. So as we continue to get further into the story, stay tuned, because coming up next is The Walking Dead, Season 8, Episode 10, Son of Sanctuary. Thanks for watching.
My God, no!